All right. Hello, everyone. Since it's 7 o'clock here, we will bring the Board of Water Commissioner meeting to commence. The first item on the agenda is public meeting pursuant to 310 CMR 4509 for SRF Dry Bridge Road Water Treatment Plant and Pipeline Projects Overview.
Okay, do you want to just go right into the time bond presentation, or would you like to see it? This is Fran, by the way. So yeah, as everyone knows, we're in the process of constructing a plant and Dry Bridge Road. In one of the requirements with the funding that we have via the SRF funding program is to have a public meeting, and this will count as that public meeting. So I guess at this time, turn it over to the time bond folks, who are the engineers of this project, and go from there. And then we can have questions, at the end.
Yep, that's fine. Jen, if you want to bring up the presentation, Jen and I are going to co-present on this one. So this is Chris Bone from Tie and Bond Engineering, and with me tonight is Jen Gilbert from Tie and Bond Engineering as well. The public hearing we're giving today will touch a little bit on the history of the project, but primarily is going to focus on what the delivered project is going to be once we move forward. That we've had other public meetings on alternatives at various forums. We presented with permitting agencies in the past, and moving, so this presentation today is primarily focused on, what the impacts to the community are going to be, relative to the water mains, as well as the treatment plant. So Jen will give a little bit of the background on the project. She'll touch base on the water mains, as that's been Jen's primarily design focus, and then I'll touch base on the treatment plant itself, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions following this presentation. So we're thinking something like 15 minutes. We'll go through our slides.
Great. Yeah. So, can everybody see this? See the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, thanks, Jen.
I want to double check before we keep going. So thank you for the introduction. Let's go through the agenda. So first off, I'm just going to briefly talk about background of the project. So just to give you an idea of Westfield Water's system, it has over 11,000 connections, over 200 miles of pipe, 4 storage tank, and there's 8 groundwater wells that supply water to the city, as well as a reservoir at the Granville Reservoir. There's Montgomery Reservoir, but it's currently inactive. So let's go to the next one. So just to give you an idea, so of the 8 wells, 4 of them are in the Barnes Aquifer that is located here by the Air Force Base. And generally the flow for the entire system goes from the north side to the south side of the city. In 2013, we had determined that there may be an issue here with PFAS. And so we found those in wells 7 and 8 and in wells 1 and 2, which are in the vicinity of the Air Force Base. And so the first thing we want to do is, when we have a problem, is evaluate, source option and treatment. So what are things you can do? One thing to keep in mind about the system that's unique to some systems and for Westfield is that the majority of the flow can equalize from north to south side, that there's 3 river crossings where water can go from north to south, and there's a equalization and pressure tank for, at East Mountain tank here. And like I was saying, generally the water can flow back and forth. However, for the hydraulics of the system, it can be limited from going to south to north. So just keep that in mind. So the next thing we want to talk about are alternatives. And so when we come to talking about PFAS and the issues related to it, there's kind of 2 different ways that you can manage this kind of contamination. You look at alternative sources than what you're getting the source water from currently that has the contamination, or you can treat at the wells. And so early in the evaluation, the city reached out to us and to to other consultants to get ideas of what can you do to manage and create safe drinking water for the city. And we looked at Holyoke interconnection, which would be connecting to at the south side of the city and sending flow from south to north into where the current wells 7 and 8 and 1 and 2 are. Alternative groundwater supplies as well were evaluated. But in the end, due to cost, permitting, and just the wanted to expedite getting water to the city, we ended up finding out that that just wasn't an option and wasn't in the best interest of the city. So we proceeded with doing well treatment. And so there's several different items that are part of a first step look of, okay, we're going to proceed with doing well treatment. What are kind of the design hurdles or the design critical factors that need to be evaluated? One is the location of the wastewater treatment plant. So well 1 and 2 are located off of Holyoke Road and Dry Bridge. So this is Dry Bridge right here. You know, just by the flow, we wanted to look to see if there's where in between these two wells could we place a new treatment plant to send the source water to the treatment plant to get treated and then go back out into the system. So early on, we also helped with evaluation of what type of treatment method, and we were proceeding with GAC, granulated activated carbon. We also looked at different pipeline interconnections, permitting, cost estimate, all these things to evaluate what was in the best interest of the city for doing this project. One in particular was where to put the site. We looked at 3 different conceptual layouts. And we ended up going with 2B that's underneath this, but you'll see another photo of that later, so don't feel like you're missing out. So the reason why you look at different site alternatives is to be able to see for access, for just doing any disturbance on the land, what makes sense is most efficient. And then we also looked at different options for getting the source water to a treatment plant. What ended up being selected was having a treatment plant in between the 2 wells and then distributing bringing the raw water to the treatment plant and then interconnecting out into the system. There was also an alternative whether we could interconnect between the 2 wells. That alternative didn't pan out. So next is final design. So after having the evaluation done, and the city considered the different options and what would be most cost effective and reasonable for the city for maintenance and all the different criteria, that the city decided to proceed with asking SRF to request for funding. So the State Revolving Fund program provides low interest loans to communities that have infrastructure projects that they would like to get funding for. And for that application, we actually split it up into 2 contracts. The advantage of that is that there tends to be more competitive environment with the 2 contracts. And so this is where we're at right now. We're at 95% design with these 2 contracts. So now I'm just going to turn over to Chris, and he'll go into a little bit more details about the treatment plan itself.
Yep. Thank you, Jen. So some of the more important numbers, the capacity of this treatment plant is 2,600 gallons per minute. That's the peak capacity that we can run through this treatment plant. And that essentially mimics the current capacity of well number 1 and well number 2. The main treatment technology, as Jen mentioned, is granular activated carbon. There are 4 40,000-pound granular activated carbon vessels, and I'll show you a photograph of what one of those looks like in a minute. There are 3 chemical feed systems in the facility. There's sodium hypochlorite for disinfection. There's sodium hydroxide for pH adjustment and zinc orthophosphate for corrosion control. Those are very common chemicals. They're used at other well fields in the city and mimic what is already used at a large degree at wells 1 and 2. In addition, the project includes upgrades to the well 1 and well 2 well houses, primarily increase the electrical and pump capacity to adjust for the higher pressure of pumping through the granular activated carbon vessels. So we are essentially complete with design. We're putting the finishing touches on the design. as we speak. We're making the final submittals to Department of Environmental Protection for their approvals. And once we have those approvals and wrap up the design, we'll be ready to go to bid. So Jen, if you want to go to the next slide. This is a site plan showing the Dry Bridge Road water treatment plant as part of the final design. You can see Dry Bridge Road running across the top of the page. There's a driveway that comes off Dry Bridge Road that enters the site. There's a gate just past the bend in the driveway that would restrict access to the site for only to those authorized people. And then the entire treatment plant site is fenced. There's a fence that runs close around that loop driveway around the treatment building. The treatment building itself is the gray shaded structure right in the middle of the driveway areas. Right where Jen is showing that now. And then again, the driveway loops around with a few parking spots out front for treatment plant employees who will be parking and living at this facility. The site itself will be cleared. There's trees at the site now. Those trees will be cleared. And then when we're done, you're seeing the plantings that'll come back that'll provide some screening of this facility from Dry Bridge Road and soften the appearance. The plantings are primarily native species. There'll be red maple, white oak, white pine, those types of native trees, as well as some low shrubs along the front to soften the lower front of the building as well. So Jen, if you want to go to the next slide, we can come back if there's questions on any of these drawings at any point. This is a floor plan of the facility, and we'll talk about it again in a minute when we see some of the exterior elevations, but the facility is essentially broken into 3 separate areas. The rectangle in the upper right corner is primarily an office and laboratory type area. So there's a control room where the control computers reside. There's a very small laboratory room where operators perform basic sampling that they'll do at site and monitoring of the process. And then 2 small offices for operators when they're doing paperwork, things along those lines. In addition, there's a men's and women's room, a small custodial closet, and a mechanical room and electrical room in that office area in the upper right corner. In the upper left corner, there's another rectangle that houses the chemical storage area. So that's where the sodium hypochlorite, the sodium hydroxide, and the zinc orthophosphate tanks reside. And then in the bottom center is the main treatment area where the 4 granule activated carbon vessels are located. So Jen, if you want to go to the next slide. This is a photograph of one of the 4 granule activated carbon vessels. This is the vessel that's currently located at well 2, providing temporary treatment. It's been in that location for a couple of years now. The intent is to relocate this vessel into the new treatment plant. We've given the contractor the option to buy 4 new vessels, but we think it's going to be more cost effective for them to relocate this vessel into the new treatment plant at the latter stages of construction and reuse it. So just providing this picture is an example of what the vessels are going to look like inside the facility. So it's literally nothing more than a steel tank filled with carbon, and the carbon provides the treatment. Want to go to the next slide, Jim? Yep. This is a cross section of the building, and you'll see a rendering in a second. But it's got essentially 3 different areas, and you'll see that better in the rendering. The tallest part towards the back of the building is going to be where the filter vessels are located. The lowest areas are the admin areas, and then you see an HVAC area that's towards the middle of the plant, and then another area you'll see in the next slide, Jen, if you want to go to that shows the chemical rooms. So this is a rendering of the building. And again, I'll step through the different areas of the facility. So the taller structure in the back with a curved roof is the filter area. In the front foreground is the office area. The higher brick building towards the middle is office area with an HVAC ventilation mechanical room on top of that. And then the mid-height area in the background out of brick is the chemical room. And then you can see the fencing around the facility. Jeff, to go back to that. You can see the fencing around the driveway area, and then some parking. This doesn't show the full level of landscaping that you'll see from Dry Bridge Road, so it's a little misleading from that perspective, but it does give you a good view of the building itself. Okay, you can go to the next one, John. Good. So just on bidding and construction schedule, just a high level overview. Again, we expect to be done with design, in the next month here as we wrap up and do the final permitting through the SRF program. Bid this project in the summer of 2021. Bidding is typically, a 6-week process once we start, if all goes well, and then there'll be another 4 to 6 week period to review the bids and get approval to award from DEP, something along those lines. So expectation would be awarding to a contractor in fall of 2021, with construction proceeding from fall of 2021 to spring of 2023. In terms of active work on the site for both the water main contract as well as the water treatment plant construction contract, most of what is going to be visible is going to be happening during the 2022 construction season, with some interior work happening in winter and spring of 2023 to finish the facility. But most of what we're going to see from a construction perspective is going to happen next year. So that's the presentation. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
I have a few, Joe, if no one else has any.
Yeah, go ahead,
Why don't I start with, so Chris, I heard you say that there was going to be a pretty significant clearing of that area. Is that a function of the need to get equipment or the vessels or whatnot in? Because I mean, where I thought it was going to be, it's reasonably, and there is a little bit of a grade down to a flatter area.
Yep.
I felt it was going to be a little bit off the road. And again, is there a need? Let me ask it this way. Would the fascia, would the trees that would be entirely in front of where the treatment center would be all be cleared, or would it just be some to give you room to work in there? Because I can just
double
imagine.
check the drawings. I believe we are clearing all of that. I will have to double check and see if there's anything that's staying. The trees there they're mature trees. They're very tall. Most of the growth is high. So from a screening perspective, they're not going to provide a lot of screening for the building, particularly since you're looking down. And you do have concerns when you disturb a site like that. If you leave a taller tree, you cut around, do you have a tree that's going to be, fully stable long-term and could fall and impact some of the structures you're putting in. So
Right.
There might be some on the peripheries, but that whole main area, that we're going to have to clear that when we come in.
Yeah, so right now we do show a strip of a buffer, but I recall that it's fairly thin for the existing up until, it won't be substantial.
Right. Most of the trees are already, there's a utility corridor there along Dry Bridge Road on that side of the road. So there's not a lot of trees there until you get pushed back anyway.
So that access path that goes into there, or road, there is a gate there now. And it was my understanding it was going to be a little bit left of that existing road, correct? The site itself. If you were entering the existing right of way.
Yeah.
Is it going to be to the left of that road as you enter that area? Jen, you're muted.
I think we're right on top of that gate. I think we're pretty close to that gate, because that gate, I think, is pretty close to the opposite of that side street that comes into Dry Bridge Road.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, I'll call it north of that road. that side street that comes in from the opposite side. The reason I ask is clearly public comment would be probably most vociferous from the folks that live on Dry Bridge.
Yep.
On the opposite side, and anything we can do to mitigate the visual impact of this site from them is probably going to be perceived as just favorable on our part. I'm anticipating the objections and trying to, at least have a point of view or a position that the commission would have as it relates.
The intent with the plantings, I mean, so you've got older growth, I wouldn't call it old growth trees, but more mature trees that are taller there. They've almost grown up past a lot of the screening benefits. You're going to, in the background, you're still going to have the mature forest there that'll be character with what's been there. And then putting the plantings that we're putting in, a combination of maple, the white pine, and the oak, primarily across that whole front screening and around the driveway, will provide trees that are going to mature into a mid-height that'll provide more beneficial screening, as they grow, plus some lower shrubs that'll soften, the lower contours of the building. So that was the intent as we looked. I can take a closer look at what we could save from the existing trees, and sometimes you'll make selected decisions when you see a tree that's of good health. And I would also defer to Westfield's tree warden on what they think of the trees before we start making those kinds of calls.
Right, and I don't want to micromanage this. I don't think I certainly don't think it's going to be a deal breaker, but I just think that in as much as we can try, and clearly you don't want fall hazards. So we don't want anything to hit the building. So, and I know that's probably that is old growth, and those are pretty massive trees that are kind of on the street side of the building. And again, given the fall away contour of that hill, or it's not even a hill, but there is some contour to it that would obviously lean the tree towards falling on it, which clearly we don't want. So
yeah, I'll have to take a look at grading as well. I mean, the unfortunate part is when we grade sites for stormwater, things like that it's hard to sometimes protect all of the trees. But if there are selected trees across the front that we can preserve, I certainly would be open to doing that.
Yeah, I also looked in, so as you're looking at, Dry Bridge towards the plant, so we're just to the right of the gravel drive. I just confirmed that. So we're coming in so that it's a four-way with Florence.
Okay, so it's to the right of that. Okay.
To the right of that. Yep.
Okay, got it. All right.
Yep.
Thanks, Jen. Second question. Clearly, we've had some learnings from the Owens District plant. I'm assuming that we would at least incorporate some of those learnings into the design of Dry Bridge, my hope is.
Yeah. One of the bigger issues was and I wasn't involved in the day-to-day with well 7 and 8, but one of the bigger issues was the carbon itself. We're specifying a low arsenic carbon here. There's no such thing as guaranteed, free of any contaminant, but this is a low arsenic carbon, so that there's a premium to be paid for that. And I think that's a good lesson for the city moving forward, and any carbon replacement would be to go with that style carbon. I know there was questions about the Shaker Road plant on what kind of carbon to use there, and we provided the specs for that if that carbon is replaced. So that is definitely a significant lesson that was learned from that facility. There were issues with roof height as well, and we've gotten more roof clearance. Some of those kinds of issues are an issue here. So,
and just floor plan, I think the other 7 and 8 is somewhat cramped in space, at least from an operator standpoint. I think if we can take the input of the folks that would actually be running the plant, I don't know if that was, I don't know if that was fully vetted out on the last one. And the last one was burst valves, I think they're called. I don't know what, not using those versus what we put in play to.
We have a relief valve here from all the GAC vessels. It's a pipe system that runs essentially underneath the driveway to a rock swale. So if the relief valve goes, there won't be water released inside the facility or along the perimeter of the facility. It'll be discharged out to the back of the site. So that's a different design element that's incorporated here.
Right. So it wouldn't be like a burst plate.
No, it would not be that. Absolutely not. Nope.
Yeah. Okay.
And also during design too, we did meet with like operators and get their input on it, and the space was expanded from our original design to include some more office space and kind of have it be like a command center for the north side.
Yeah, I'll reiterate that. There were many, many meetings with city staff throughout design to incorporate those preferences, as well as ongoing lessons that were learned from other construction projects.
Okay. And then the last question I have, Joe, is would there be any interruption to the temporary filtration at 2 in the midst of, I mean, it's a pretty long, it sounds like construction cycle, almost over 2 full years. Would there be any interruption of either the temporary permit or the usage of that site from a backup standpoint for the system?
I'll defer to others in the city on where the temporary permit lies on that. It certainly wasn't envisioned to be in that temporary system installed as long as it's been already. But we've given the contractor the option to reuse the vessel, as I stated, or to provide a new vessel. I believe it's going to be to their advantage to reuse that vessel. It's a steel tank, and it'll be still in good overall condition. So there would be some interruption, to move that vessel up to the treatment plant site, but that should be a pretty minimal process. Weeks or month, not 6 month type of outage. Something along those lines.
I think the timing of when that would happen could play well. So if it was offline, if we didn't have it available in call it the shoulder seasons, probably wouldn't be a problem. If it's going to be offline in dead of summer and we do have a problem with 7/8, clearly we need some redundancy. So I mean, it's just something to consider.
We can build in work restrictions like that. That makes total sense. Yep.
Joe, those are all my questions.
All right, thank you very much, Ron. Does anyone have anything else?
To the chair.
Yep, go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry, when does this get vetted to the neighborhood?
So I believe the intent of this meeting was the public participation, right? Or are there additional neighborhood meetings coming up?
No, this was the public meeting. Prior to maybe COVID, we might have done something a little different, but that kind of washed a lot of what we had maybe anticipated on doing. And so this, we were hoping, it certainly meets the SRF requirements, and we were hoping that this would be it.
I just don't notice a lot of neighborhood participation here.
All right.
No, I agree. How was this? This was advertised in the paper, correct?
It was posted on the city website with the agenda when it was posted last week, so it's been up for 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
I don't think it was required of us to put it in the newspaper.
No, I think I was mistaken with the water rate.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Is there a platform, I guess, as people do have questions, to get those vetted? I'm guessing those can be asked to the department and then forwarded on to the appropriate party if needed?
Absolutely, we could put this information on the city website with the other the ongoing projects the city has. And there can always be a little blurb at the bottom that says, any questions, please contact the DPW, and you can go from there.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, has there been any effort to directly reach out to the neighborhood in the immediate vicinity to let them know something is coming, where to go for questions, where to go to see what's proposed? Typically, we would send out postcards to people in the neighborhood directly.
No.
There wasn't anything a while back.
No, COVID messed our whole game plan on this stuff, and the meetings wouldn't have probably been any different than this, to be honest with you, but, I suppose we could, I'm not opposed to that. We'll set something up right on this. We couldn't even find a site before to do this, but, early on, we had plans that we probably would have set up like a tent. We could have had a public meeting right on the site, as a matter of fact, and got neighborhood input, but like I said, COVID drastically changed that and kind of hit right when we were, gearing up towards a move like that. So, that is something we could do.
Yeah, I recall this being, this has been a long-standing item on the department updates. For a while it said, waiting for neighborhood meeting or whatever, planning neighborhood meeting, which I understand as well. Like you're saying, this has pretty much been stalled due to COVID, and then we haven't had any public meetings, and we're still hosting commission meetings through Zoom. But I also agree with Mark that there probably is some value for those who weren't aware of the meeting tonight, just to lend the offer that, if anyone has any questions or concerns, the department's here to try to address them. And, maybe if there's a lot of interest, as the project gets going here, because I think as Chris had mentioned, there will be some time, before the project gets rolling into construction. You can give the neighborhood an opportunity to talk through any questions they may have.
I'll be willing to spearhead that, and we, like I said, we could find a location. The church, Holy Trinity, not Holy Trinity, Blessed Sacrament. Maybe I could do something there if they were willing to allow it, or we have on site or whatever. I'm just thinking more practical for the impacted residents, but we definitely could do that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. That's a great idea to actually have an assembly and to meet to discuss. I guess I'm more concerned just to try to wake people up. Time and again, when we go to do an infrastructure improvement project, we do numerous public outreaches and public meetings and advertisements and so forth. As this project has seen a lot of public action between the city council and the SRF and so forth. But when you start putting the pipes in the lawn, then people start saying, hey, what are you doing? So as much as you can do, such as getting out a mailer to every resident out there, letting them know, we're coming, this is our time schedule, this is what we're going to do. You want more details, take a look at this link on the website. Here's a phone number to call for questions. At least you have that to fall back on when they finally do wake up and say, hey, what are you doing? You can say, well, we mailed something to you. We tried, we tried to get it to you. And as many questions as you can put to bed now, the fewer you'll have in the future. It's not that difficult. We'd be happy to lend support to the department to put out a mailer. We do it regularly. But I do think you're going to get some public outcry when you start digging and putting up something and they don't know what it is. And so the more you can inform them, the better off you're going to be.
And understood, Mark, and I appreciate what you're saying. And yes, if you want to call it a misstep on our part or put something ahead of something else, that was our intent all along, and for a variety of reasons, COVID being one of them, and then not even sure if this project was going to happen, to be honest with you. That's kind of where we fell short on that, and I think we can make up for that.
It's happy to help anyways. I just think the more you can do, the better you'll be off.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. It's a great suggestion. And yeah, it's not that anyone, the ball was dropped or anything like that. It's just, a project of this magnitude, I agree with Mark, based on experience as well, is that, people are going to have questions and they are going to get concerned when they see, the giant excavator coming down the street to put in the pipe. So at least, they won't have the, maybe not as many people will have the shock, and they'll at least say, yeah, we got a letter. We knew it was coming. They might still be upset, but at least people were made aware, and there was some foresight to it.
Yes, we will do that.
Okay.
You've got two sets of disturbances here. You've got the water main that's going in. It's going to be a quick disturbance for a lot of people as that work progresses past their house on the street. And then you've got the treatment plant itself, which is going to be a significant disturbance for, 10 homes or something like that that are directly in the vicinity of that. So if there's anything Ty and Bond can do relative to providing graphics for a website or anything you need to do, just let us know. We can provide, drawings, renderings, whatever you need to help support that effort.
Chris, that was a thought I had too as we're discussing this is if, and I know you can't commit right now what the exact timing is going to be, but if we're going to present information to the public, if we can, present, say it's going to be in general 3 phases and you estimate, what's going to happen during each phase, in a fashion that would make it easy for, the general public to at least get a gist of that. Like if you're saying, certain site work's going to initiate this fall in general, what's that going to be? What's the expected duration of that? So on and so forth.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, depending on how the city wanted to do it, you could have a general mailer now with a link to a website or whatever you want to do with like the high level information. And then, once you've got a contractor on site and that they're going to be progressing down, Springdale Road or whatever, during, these 2 months, to let people in the vicinity of that know that for the next 2 months, you're going to see disturbance and, based on the contractor's actual schedule.
Okay, yeah, so this presentation tonight could get reposted? No, I think, I think even just it can be whether the whole commission meeting or just a snippet, if you just broke that out, it would be a great resource for the link that's provided in the letter for people to say, here's a broad overview of the project. That's a great idea, Peter. Is everyone else okay with that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think even if you took the formal presentation tonight that we had, the slide presentation, that we could probably get that up on the website pretty quick.
Yeah.
And we'll fine tune the mailer, kind of target folks. We can get that done this week as far as neighborhood folks, in direct vicinity and kind of, go out from there. We could do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then, like Chris had mentioned too, when the contractor provides their schedule, even just providing the homeowners, a loose understanding of what that schedule looks like, because obviously contractor schedules shift. And I can't tell you how many people have gotten mad that you didn't show up when we told them they were going to be there and they're a week late. And well, you're supposed to be here last week. So just general information, the more we can get out, the better. Makes people aware. So great suggestion, Mark and Chris and everybody. Thanks for following through on that. Chris, I'm sorry if you said this before, and Jen, how far back is the treatment plant going to be staged from the road? Loosely.
Geez, Joe, 100 feet, something like that. It's reasonably far back, but not way back. It's
right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I don't know the exact number. I can look in a minute here and tell you, but
yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Could I ask just some questions on details?
Sure.
I'm sorry. So, Chris, could you tell me the driveway that you presented, how wide is that?
Mark, I'm going to have to pull the drawings up. I don't want to, and I'm going to answer Joe's question correctly too. You have to give me a few minutes here to pull that stuff up.
No, understood. To me, it appeared to be as wide as a road, some 25, 26 feet. I would suggest you want to make it look more like a driveway.
The challenge is truck turning. Mark, we're bringing in chemical trucks periodically and carbon fill trucks, things like that. So we could take a look at softening that a little bit, but I think the intent would be to err on the side of width and then try and screen it.
So I guess, again, I'm concerned about neighborhood perception. Again, I would think that, yes, generous driveway would accommodate any kind of truck as long as it has all the pavement to work with. And the traffic in and out of this facility should certainly accommodate that should be a possibility. I mean, if you take a look at the water treatment wells for West Springfield off of Shaker Road, certainly it's a modest driveway that goes in and services, I think, a very similar type of facility. They use the granulated carbon more for EDB contamination, but still. So again, I mean, as much as you can do to soften the impact to the neighborhood, I certainly suggest.
Mark, we'll take a look at that. If we can make it narrower and not impact turning radius and things like that, we'll try and do that. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone have anything else?
Nothing here. Nothing here, Joe.
All right. I know you're still looking up that distance for me, Chris.
Yes.
So I found the drawing. So we're 160 feet
60.
from the closest corner, from the edge of pavement to the front edge of the building. And then the driveway itself, it looks wider than 26. I think I'm just looking for the cross section for that too. 1 second.
Okay, so 160 feet though, that's a good distance.
The driveway's, yeah, the driveway's 24. Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you both very much.
Yep.
If there's nothing else, I think we're all set.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you very much. And Peter, again, a great suggestion, putting that on the website. So thank you for that as well. All right, we'll move on then to the next agenda item, discussion and vote on water rate increase. So kind of twofold here. Thank you for providing this summary table that we received last week or a couple weeks ago. Provided some good insight to how rates will be affected based on consumption. Anyone have any questions or comments, I guess, on that table?
No, I don't have anything further.
Yeah, I mean, for the assumed average user, rates actually go down, which is great. It's just, the high consumption users, right? It seems that's where the rate increase is really, you actually see the rate increase.
Yep. And I think too, what happens, given that we do the quarterly billing, you have all this kind of swings as far as, kind of use the term sticker shock or, paying for your past activity, kind of like a credit card bill from vacation or whatever. So I think that in some ways doesn't help us. I mean, in the end, it's the same, sum of money, but I think that does hurt us sometimes when we put something like this in effect because people, if they're not paying monthly, they're, having it's kind of added it all together. So it's whatever that's worth.
What was this table published publicly, or can it be published publicly?
I suppose it could once we decide upon it.
Yeah, I think if this is a decision you guys choose to go with, something we can definitely put on the city website with just a little information that, this is gonna be happening annually and, give the residents a decent amount of time to take this information in.
And maybe we could even put something together and just put in the bills too.
Yeah, because ideally we would like this to be voted for the new fiscal year for July 1st. So with that first round of bills, we can, at least the first 3 months, we can send something out that says, even the copy of the spreadsheet of the model showing what it's gonna look like, so that people can, start looking at the water usage that they're using on a daily basis.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Fran. The credit card analogy is a great one for like vacation. I can imagine a lot of people are going to water their lawns or do whatever they do like they've done in the past and not have that benchmark. And this table provides some pretty good benchmark usages where people can, they're not going to fit. Not everyone's going to fit these exact numbers, but you're going to be right around them. So if this is the decision or the direction that we decide to go, I think it does provide valuable information to the user so they can adjust accordingly. If they either don't want to pay as much or, whatever it may be.
Right, like you're saying, Joe, it gives them an opportunity to modify their behavior.
Yeah. Before it's too late, right? Before they get that 3/4 bill for the hottest 3 months of the summer. Or sorry, 3-month bill for the hottest months of the summer.
Right.
So.
What might be helpful is a pie chart or something, I don't really care, about how many or what percentage of households fall into each of those tier categories: low, moderate, high, very high.
Okay.
And you're saying give up like an advance warning to those folks?
No, I'm not saying tell them that, but just to give an idea of how many households fall into each of those tier: low, moderate, high, very high.
Right. I mean, customer concern, whether it's 1 or 2, is still a concern, but if you really show that it's 300 homes or something, it's really impacting people, but it's not.
Right, exactly. I just think to dimensionalize how many homes would fall into that, because I mean, honestly, that very high is probably the only group that's just going to be like, WTF, what happened, right? The rest of them would be like, honestly, this is not, this doesn't impact me. The other thing I think we need to at least provide some guidance on is how to, one, interpret what's happening, and 2, how to interpret once the bill comes in, what it means. You know what I mean? That something to at least give people a heads up on how to read the bill and what the rate change, what the tiered rate structure means. I don't know. And again, I'm just saying the more that we can get in front of people with the change, because I think that would help them to understand, okay, you know what, it's only 400 homes out of 11,000. Is that how many we have? It's over 11,000 services, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's, just giving folks an idea of whether it's 400 or, 1,500. I don't really care. And we don't have to get specific to where they are, because I'm sure they all know. I mean, 482,000 gallons in the quarter is, call it 40,000 gallons a week. That's a lot of water.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of water, but whatever. And they got to understand that if I water like I do or did, I'm probably going to have that kind of sticker shock, and just know it's going to happen.
Yeah, but right. And that gives the user the opportunity to, like John said, to adjust their behavior. And if they don't want to pay the extra anticipated $600, then right. Watering for 2 hours a day, you're watering for,
I think
an hour a day, whatever.
I think the table's really helpful.
Pie chart's a great idea too, though, because it gives the community an idea of how Westfield is affected as a whole.
Yeah.
Do you want to spearhead that, Anna?
Yeah, I can get in touch with Jen and Chris, because they have the numbers, and I can see if we can get into a pie chart. And this we can also get in the city website as early as tomorrow.
Okay, it's for the board's purposes. When do you think you'd have a comfort level of seeing us do that? Obviously, we're not going to do it tomorrow, but if we put something together, we could kind of send it out to show you, look, some of the things we want to do. But I mean, is July 1 good for you? August 1 would you? Because a lot of people aren't going to be impacted with bills essentially till September.
Yeah.
I think the idea is to get the word out
Yeah.
before July 1.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I I think.
Yeah, I would say, I wouldn't say it's the most urgent thing, but if we could get information out before
No,
it passes.
Yeah, no, it's the right thing to do, and it gives you something to reference to folks. And,
Sure.
That.
And I don't want to say there's no excuse at that point, but at least the information was available prior to the rate increase. So, if we put out August 1 or, September 1, whatever, there's 2 months there potentially lost where people say, well, I didn't know, even though we're voting on it, it's public, but, people won't have that additional information that'll help them make that informed decision.
Yeah, I can also put a little blurb in the newspaper that directs people to the city website that has this information listed, so they're aware of it before those first round of bills come out.
That would be great.
I get as much as we can out there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Anything the department can do to spread the word, I think would be very beneficial.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Fran had a good idea too. I heard you saying, this might be a good time to again add some language about conservation.
Yeah,
concepts.
We have a
Well,
local website. that we
We'll get
can
some
add
information on law and watering and
Right.
point people to that.
Yeah, I think it's been provided before when we were instituting the water use restrictions, so like just another reminder.
That's a great idea too. I think I'm good with
Yeah, I'm
increase as presented.
Sorry, it was excellent.
So let me ask, at what point would we want to vote on the proposed rate change? Would we want to do it after that? I mean, I guess that's my next question is what are next steps beyond building outreach?
Ideally, it would be nice to have the new rate set for July 1 because it's the new fiscal year. But if you wanted to wait a couple months or maybe wait till the second quarter bills go out, which would be October 1st. But I think we really wanted to go July 1st. I think that's how the presentation was originally presented.
And what's an impact of not going to July 1st?
I mean, it's just 3 months without the rate increase. It would be the summer months.
Right, so my question, if we chose that way, is what's the impact on that? You just use the current rate.
We use the
structure.
current rate, yeah, exactly.
So I guess we're kind of looking at maybe like a soft start, if you will, that here's a heads up and
That is not potential, right? And then you could give more of a notice than just a couple of weeks.
and then maybe you could hit. Yeah,
But then,
Sorry, John, go ahead.
no, well, the other fear I have, if we do that, then, a lot of people are gonna see, oh, my rates have actually decreased, and then people are gonna forget about this when the tidal wave hits next summer. But again, like Ron was saying, it's probably a fairly low percentage of the customers.
Hey, I think now is the appropriate time to do it. If the department can commit to getting information out to the users, whether it's a week or 2 weeks, if the department gets something out on June 14th, that's almost 2 weeks from now, or just less than 2 weeks from now. That gives almost 3 weeks for people to have an understanding. Even if you sent a follow-up, if you did June 14th and June 28th, get a couple of notifications out there. I agree with John that I think this is when people are going to recognize the impact on their usage in their bills and the cost that it's associated with that. And if we wait for the vote until enacting it to the next quarter, that's quarter 2 and 3, most users are seeing, I guess the high users are not seeing a decrease at this point. Most users are seeing the decrease. And that false perception could be real and forgotten come the next high water use season.
Yeah, and we could definitely get something together this week to get out to the public. And like I said, I can also send out a final notice with their first quarter bills, July, August, and September, that says, you know, we have reminded you, the water rate increase has been put into effect. Just so that, you know, they've seen it multiple times at this point.
Yeah, so you would send it out with the March, April, May, or sorry, April, May, June bill, essentially?
July, August, and September. So I would get something out anyways this week to post on the city website, to the newspaper, get that out first. And then the first bill that has the new rate increase, send them a final notice from us saying that as of July 1st, the rate did go up, you might see an increase, just so that it's a third notice that they've seen that we've made this increase.
Right, so that would be in the bill for
In the bill.
April, May, June.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry, yes.
That's what I mean. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so, right, so it's still getting to the user before the rates are
Correct.
So that would be a good
pretty
thing.
close to when they're going into.
Right, people will have their bill, you know, and then they're referencing this information, they can see exactly
Yep.
what.
But that would only be going to like 5,000 or so folks.
If I send out the first 3 months, it'll be all 11,000 users.
Okay.
I would like to send them out because each bill will have their initial spring to summer usage, which will be that first rate increase.
Okay.
Right, we just have to make it very clear, because the bill's gonna be for the old rate, and then, going as of July 1st, this is, you know.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay.
And have you been still doing the green cards?
I haven't done the green
And
cards.
what's that been averaging?
I do them every week, but I only send a notice once a month to residents, so if they,
And does
Yeah.
it drop down?
it does drop down, by the end of the month, I'm down to like maybe 15 notices. At
Okay.
the beginning of the month, I usually
And
have
have you
20,
seen some big numbers?
30, some big numbers, but we do send out the foreman or a technician to go knock on the door to see if we can get somebody to tell them there's a large leak in their house. We had a building, we had to shut down with abandoned, water, or
Yeah.
that was a large leak. So yeah, so we'll just look at that as
Okay.
well.
Ron or John, any other questions or concerns?
No, I don't. I mean, I think it was last week or the week before that Springfield, announced a very significant rate increase. So, I mean, it's not like this should come as a surprise to at least the ratepayer. I did think what will come as a surprise is a change in the way that it's calculated. And I definitely want to make sure we're in front of that, because we had all kinds of noise as it related to just a meter, and spike in, perceived spike in usage, perceived spike in bills. And now some of it was related to lag time and, calculated versus actual and a lot of that. But anytime anybody gets a higher bill, all of a sudden it's, conspiracy theory. And I just, in as much as we can avoid that, that's my goal.
That's a great outlook, right? And whatever we can do to get stuff out the door to notify people, the better, because this is when it's going to happen. It's going to be July, August, September is when, people are going to see it.
100%. But that's my only point. I'm okay. I mean, if we want to vote on it, and I don't know, I don't have the rate change in front of me, whether it's a motion to approve the rate change structure as discussed in whatever the last meeting was that we had the discussion. I just don't have the language in front of me to
make that motion. Yeah.
a good motion,
I don't know what the proposed new rate was going to, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. So I guess you could do the vote as,
Can we just reference the team? Can we reference the, I don't have.
Chris, is that model that was sent to us a couple weeks ago, is that the most current rate increase for the July 1st?
Yes,
Okay,
Jen, that's correct, right? I mean, that should be the latest and greatest model.
okay.
Yeah, if you want, are you going to draft an article for the vote? If you want us to take a look at that, we'd certainly be happy to take a look and make sure we're on the same page about about that, but that's the latest model for sure.
That's like option 2, if essentially.
Or what, tier was option 3, right?
Yeah, yes, 3 or 3. Proceed or however.
Yeah.
It's presented.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just bringing it up. Hold on.
And I'm trying to find the presentation here to find the actual array. Alternate, is it alternate C, right?
Yeah, I believe
Tiered
so.
rates.
Correct. Yep.
Um, and part of the rate increase, right, there was that it's on an annual basis or revisited on an annual basis.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Is it possible to vote it retroactively? 5 days late?
Don't.
Or are we comfortable with pulling this together? I guess I agree with Ron. Like, I just want to make sure it's well defined.
Seriously.
First Tuesday would be July 6th. I don't know if you can retroactively vote it.
Don't know off the top of my head, because I do have to do a rate change for the sewer. I don't know how quick audit does that, or if it's already set in I think it's might be already set in Munis to take effect as of July 1st.
Understand.
Yeah.
So I brought up our report. I can share the screen so you can see what the proposed rates are, if you'd like.
That'd be great.
Okay.
But what's the problem? It doesn't line up going into July?
Yeah, so if we were to wait to our next meeting, it's July 6th. But I don't think they would be allowing to retroactive. I think you have to do that by the 1st to start off the new fiscal year. Yeah, and I can't pull the bill run until the rates are changed.
Are you sharing, Jen?
I am.
We can't see anything.
The wrong screen.
Oh, am I looking at the wrong screen?
No, I think Jen's sharing it. Wrong screen.
Oh, shoot.
Okay.
There we go.
We're getting it now.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so this is showing, the tiers.
So I guess my question is, how do we make a motion to put this into play? And I'm not being obtuse. I don't know whether we use table 5-11 as our exhibit of how the new rate structure, what the new rate structure will be, so, and again, I'm asking the question of, we are going to make a motion to adopt a new water rate structure in the city of Westfield starting on the July 1st quarter usage that is going to be tiered, 3 tiers. Again, I'm looking for guidance on how to actually make a motion to put this into play.
I think if we have to visit this annually, I guess you could just say the new rates as of FY22. As presented on the table. And this table is what we'll post on the city website. I mean, the base fees aren't changing. Those are still No, they are changing.
Oh, they're changing as well.
The larger ones are, yeah. Yeah, my suggestion was just to reference the table as of fiscal year 22,
Yeah, to adopt these rates, you know.
as of July 1st.
As listed in table 511 annual prints.
Yep. And this, like I said, this table can be posted specifically just for fiscal 22. Post this one on the city website. That way residents have a place to go look at the rates.
I think we make it a requirement, Ron, that we just evaluate this on an annual basis.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
because really, I don't think what we want to post would be, I'm assuming what we want to post is called the first 4 columns, description, type, FY21, and then FY22, and don't post anything else, because I don't think we're even talking about, I mean, if we're gonna review this annually, we don't really need to put 23 out, correct?
I
Correct.
agree.
So that would at least make it easier for the user to not get lost in the minutia and say, okay, all I'm really worried about is the from to on 21 to 22, because right now our rate is $433 per thousand. It would be going to those rates as illustrated at the bottom. Yeah, that would be, to me, that would be what we would post. And then they could see, all right, my base fee is, you know, changing as illustrated or not. And the usage fee is going to be a tiered structure versus flat rate, and which is dependent on usage.
Yeah, and that should be outlined. If we're going to post this, right, consumption should be identified per 1,000 gallons. And then tiers should be defined as, you know, between whatever thousands of gallons, so that it's crystal clear that your billed, you know, currently $4.33 per 1,000 gallons used. Now you're going to be billed, you know, $3.25 for 0 through 8,000, and then whatever the rest of it is.
And just to be clear, those tiers could potentially change quarter to quarter, right?
Yes.
I
So
could-
that you
I
could,
could
you
be
could,
in tier 3 in second quarter. I'm sorry, third quarter. And I could be in tier 1 for the other 3 quarters, correct?
yeah, because the way it works, I guess, Chris and Jen, right? Because you only get billed, or
Yeah, it's graduated.
Yes,
So your first consumption when you're in tier 1's charged at $3.25. Once you go over that threshold and you're into 2, everything above that threshold in tier 2 would be charged.
okay.
Yeah, it's like how you pay taxes. It's the same kind of thing. So, unfortunately, yes.
Oh my God. Oh boy. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's holy crap. All right. Okay. I'm good. But anyway, I think that would be what we would post. And obviously we want to put a footnote at the bottom. What's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 usage? You know, within the motion, we would be saying this, the structure and the revenue, well, I wouldn't say expectation, but anyway, the structure will be reviewed on an annual basis to adjust as needed, whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
Hannah, do our current bills indicate the meter size on the bill?
No, when the bill is printed, the meter size is not listed, it's just the unit price. So if you've got a 4-inch meter, it's just gonna say 80/50 per corner.
Got it.
So
Just trying to minimize confusion if we're gonna be given this information.
we can also list on the website, typical residential meters are 3/4, 5/8, and the 20/50 is what you've always paid.
Okay,
Yeah, we can make that clear.
Just for point of clarification, so the bill, I forget how it actually listed out, but typically if people are a 5/8 meter, even although the service of the house is 1 inch, primarily through 1-inch service, as most houses are, so you have a 1-inch service, well, yeah, there you go. So you have a 5-inch, so it's
Yep, so it is
5 inch by
listed.
3/4.
Yep. Thank you.
perfect.
I am also
Good
changing.
to have a resident.
Yeah.
I thought it had some
Reference
reference.
referencing example the 5/8.
Oh, right, yeah, that makes sense.
I'm also changing the language in the back of the bills because it's been outdated for a while, so I can also put the tiered information on the back of the bill, because there's stuff I'm taking off that we don't need anymore. So it'll leave space so I can put the tiered information on the back of the bill. That way there's always
Sure.
in their hands on the back of it.
Okay,
Right.
I think I could probably make a motion. All right, so I make a motion to adopt the rate schedule as defined in table 5-11 for fiscal year 2022, moving Westfield from a fixed consumption rate to a tiered consumption rate, again, as defined in table 5-11. The base fees will also change as defined in the table for certain service line size. And this rate structure will be reviewed on an annual basis to adjust as needed to meet the revenue needs for the city, for the department. How'd that go?
Yeah, that's reasonable.
I would suggest here to amend the motion to include the gallons for each tier structure as well, just so that's clear as well.
Okay, and the tiered structure will have gallon thresholds for three different usage tiers, and the rate for those tiers varies based on the usage within the specific quarter.
With that,
Hannah, you got that language?
Yes, I do.
Alrighty then.
do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All right, roll call, Commissioner Cole,
Yes.
Commissioner Nadjelski,
Yes.
Commissioner Papalarzik, yes.
Do you think we could like do a revision of the table, just so we know that we're always what table we're always talking about, so there's not these tables floating around there, like this will be, table revision 1 date, or at least date it, just so you know we're talking always the same table.
This will be presented on the invoicing, right?
I'll present something very similar to this in the back of the bill, and we'll also put it on the city website,
Okay.
make sure that everyone sees it.
Right.
Because the tier, I know the first round of bills, we're gonna get a lot of phone calls with the tiers, so we'll make sure
Yeah.
that's gonna be out in the public so they can find it. Like it from the first bill.
Right, but to Fran's point, when we post it on the website,
Yeah.
it may be.
Dates.
So someone's not
Indicate there,
referencing,
or,
Yeah.
so you know you're looking at a 2021 table
Yep.
versus as we move forward with this.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you very much, Ron. Thanks for making the motion.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
No worries. Thank you.
All right. I guess to Hannah, if you can send us information or just a notice as it's going out, that'd be great. If we can get a little preview,
Yeah, I'll keep you guys in the loop and I'll have you take a look before I send anything out.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh.
All right, next discussion item or agenda item is discussion of land transfer Montgomery and Westfield land.
Okay, so this is, has to do with, obviously we have the property up in Montgomery, which is an inactive reservoir. I'd like to kind of just bring to the board's attention that this is something that, the town of Montgomery, along with some, elected officials, John Dielis's office and others, had reached out to us with, Montgomery is looking to do, have some land transferred that we currently own, which they want to use for the extension of their cemetery. From the department standpoint, we don't necessarily have a problem with it. However, there are certain things that, given the use of that land, that needs to, satisfy DEP, and there's a process is, I guess what I'm trying to say, and that, we want to make sure, and we have had discussions, with the DEP, but, certainly we're not in any position to present something to you to vote on, tonight, but I just want to kind of put it out there that that's basically what this has to do with, is a portion of land, that is, associated with the reservoir property, the town of Montgomery is looking to have it transferred to them. Now, with that said, there's certainly processes that have to be followed, and I don't even know if it could be something that could be done, or we just give them land essentially. So those are all the things that we have to work on and then present for a vote.
So why is this coming back to light? I know we had talked about this some time ago.
Well, more folks have been involved in it. Personally, most of that stuff for us, it really wasn't any benefit other than being a good neighbor, if you will.
Right.
It didn't benefit the water company, and I feel we have been a good neighbor. And they would acknowledge it as well, but that's kind of, there were some issues that, we couldn't do it because it's watershed and, you need to retain certain properties. This property was kind of held out from that, but yet it's still, there's certain processes that we have to follow. There were just a couple different things that went back and forth over time. I think there was gonna be like a land swap, like for like land, but the land that we were gonna get was, like a mountain goat couldn't even go up it. So, that wasn't gonna fly because it's not even similar land. And I think it might even been downwind of the watershed property. So that's kind of where it's come back. Some others have gotten involved and, are lobbying, if you will, for the town. And so that's kind of where we're at.
So how much land are we talking about here?
You're gonna ask that. I don't have the acres. I don't think I forgot it. How many?
What's just order of magnitude?
Weren't there some legal issues with land movement or land? I guess my question is I have absolutely no objection to doing this as long as we can do it within the confines of DEP and legal. To me, it's to your point, it's being a good neighbor, and there's a fair amount of political posturing that I think we probably want to at least be sensitive to. But at the same time, can we do it?
Yes, I don't have that paper. It's in, 10, 15 acres perhaps. I don't have that. Right.
Yeah, just want to get a
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so there are some, to Ron's point, there are some steps that need to be followed, and then there might be some issues that it can't just be gifted, that there would need to be some kind of transaction that occurs. And plus it still would need a survey to this property, which is not cheap, and then a fair market value assessment as well. So those you need to pay for. So
Right, that was gonna be my other question is, to do that, to be the good neighbor thing, what does it cost the city? So,
yeah. I mean, in the past that we've done something like this, probably $10,000 surveying and all that. So,
but we can that coupled with any other regulatory filings and approvals, and people would have to spend time and effort to go through that process. So just trying to get a sense of what those costs would
kind of changed a little bit of state. The fact that we took Tacoma Dam down kind of changes the immediacy that you could bring this online and whatnot. So
right for us, it's not, what you're saying, it's not really right.
Yeah, but I mean, Will Rogers said, buy land because we're not making any more of it. So it's not, this big. So, once you give it up, that's right. So that's kind of all I have on that. Kind of in a nutshell, was more just to I mean, we had, like I said, a meeting with probably 10 people, a Zoom meeting, you know, with concerned parties or vested parties. And we just want to bring it to the board's attention, you know, that we're kind of working on that, and then we'll be able to move forward and present something for you guys to look at.
Yep. Right, yeah, my concern would be just, you know, strategically, does it pose issues to us in the future too, if we were to do something like this, but it doesn't sound like a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't ever envision us using that watershed again. So again, I don't think there's a system impact. I think it's more of a, how do we make it happen to appease the folks that are leaning in on us to do it, and to be a good neighbor with Montgomery.
Sure.
So, I mean, Fran or Steve, tell me if I'm wrong, but the likelihood of us ever using that reservoir.
In fact, we gave them a $10,000 grader, road grader that they had asked for, that we were going to sell up for surplus, and I, you know, did a direct transfer to them, which municipalities can do at cost them. So certainly it's not like, you know, bad people here. So yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
it'd be nice to know the associated cost of this too. You know, like you were saying, Fran, there's a cost associated to being a good neighbor. You know, it'd be yeah, it's nice to know what that is.
Well, we're certainly going to have to Fran's point, we're certainly going to have to do an appraisal. And, you know, that isn't free. But at the same time, yeah, whatever you can do to move this along and to make sure that we're on the right side of DEP and legal, we're good.
and discussions have happened with, you know, with law, DEP has been brought in, you know, from the discussion, Steve on this and kind of weighed in. So, you know, we can work out all those kind of details and move it forward. And that's something to go over, I guess.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah, keep us posted as things progress.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry. Look, as an heir to one of the properties that has been acquired by the city of Westfield for that watershed property some 100 years ago, there, you know, it just has mixed concerns in my mind that look, the city took from property holders at the time for public purpose of a watershed, and now it's just selling it off. And certainly, it's in, I think, your legal rights and your title to do so, but selling it off for whatever purposes, it just seems somewhere amiss. That again, families were removed and disturbed, and now it just goes to whatever, and when the city's no longer going to use it for what it took it for. I really have no position or place for the council, the commission to go. It's just some appreciation for look, you know, what the intended purpose was for to begin with, and now it's going for the town and some political purposes. And I have not been party to all of that, so I don't know what the pressures or what the desire line is, but acres of land is quite a bit of real estate to be put into other purposes. I'm sure you'll do what is legal and is right to be done, but just to raise some perspective of what had transpired. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, 5 Westminster Street, outstanding balance and solution.
Since the last meeting when we discussed this, Steve and Fran went to the property to look at the plumbing in the basement. And it does look like the meters can be installed in each unit to allow them to have their own water meter. So ideally what would happen is I would create 5 new accounts, and each condo would be responsible for their own water service. So there would not be in one existing account for all of the water being consumed, like it is currently built.
And that would be done, I mean, we had talked the last time about this, how we would do, regular traditional service off the main, to a core, to a shut off, to each house, but I think from a less impactful to everyone on this would be to leave the existing service that goes into the house, and then they're all already kind of parsed off in there as individual, services or, connections, if you will, that can be isolated independently of one another. So the thought would be that we go in there and tee off and put a meter inside the house and do it that way. So it'd be one shut off essentially that currently exists with individual services to each apartment. I think until you do something, until this happens, and how it happens, I guess is another, do we just go ahead and do it and assess each individual, resident on this? I don't know. It's probably gonna be around $6,000 to do it that way.
Coming in from the street still doesn't alleviate that you still gotta connect inside the house.
Right.
So it's easier to leave that one service going in. There's a trunk line that runs in front of the house, like Fran was saying, you just tee off that trunk line to each individual unit, install the meter, and Ken will create the accounts and take it from there.
And then now they'd be freestanding accounts, everyone paying their own bill. So that's.
The condo complex would be responsible for that trunk line. Trunk lines there, so that was, when that was built, that was apartments, so along the line, it got into condos.
But it's literally like the service line itself going into the, it's maybe 20 feet long, and then it's all, it's within the same structure, all this plumbing that's there. So even if you went individual service lines, it would kind of be impactful of everybody. Yeah.
So just so I'm clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, the impact to the city, other than getting individual services, is minimal. I mean, the amount of work required to do this is not significant. Is that fair to say?
I guess it just brings up, like, how do we kind of execute this? Because currently it's only one customer, if you will. So
Yep.
how, do you mandate all of these individual customers now?
Which that's probably part of their agreement there.
Right, but it would be to their benefit to be, and we wouldn't do, now you wouldn't allow this, you wouldn't have a condo that has, has a one meter to the whole place kind of thing, you wouldn't have that. So.
I guess
How big is the service going in?
1 inch.
1 inch.
But I mean, there's single family homes bigger than this condo.
Sure, yes.
And the other condo buildings in the city have their own individual meters. I don't think I have many other accounts. Maybe Isabel Gardens up off of Western Ave has 1 meter. And then this one has 1 meter, and maybe another 1 or 2, but every other condo has their own meter, their own account service.
With one trunk line or individual services?
Individual, currently the way that if someone was to build this currently, they'd have 5 different services going.
Yeah.
But if
No,
you went with 5 different services, it would basically be the same thing. It wouldn't be different.
Right.
Yeah. It just.
No, yeah, the only thing I was thinking of, I know the city's obviously not in the business of shutting off water, but that ability is lost, for any one property.
You could still you could shut the building off, obviously, but that would happen on any service line.
You can lock the meter out on the shut off after their individual
Yeah,
meters.
you would gain
Oh,
access.
okay,
Yeah, you'd have to gain access to inside the house, but, or the basement and shut it off. You could still shut their service off, take their meter out. That's still good business. Yes.
yeah, okay, I hadn't thought about that. It's a good point.
So.
So that's where we're at with that, so.
And then the outstanding bill is another issue, I guess.
Like discussed, I think the plan is still, if you're okay with it, the current resident who's responsible for the bills wants to take responsibility for the outstanding balance and have it leaned on her specific third quarter tax. But legal would like us to have that in writing, just so that everyone's got everything all squared away. So that was what the resident had suggested. Law doesn't really have any other suggestions than that.
So how do we make that happen? Do we send them something that they need to sign off on in return?
Legal has offered to write something up that states, you know, you're taking full responsibility for this, it's getting linked to your third quarter tax. Then she signs it, and then, I mean, ideally she can pay off as much as she wants between now and November, because I don't post the liens until November.
Sure.
So if she wanted to start paying off the outstanding balance, she's more than welcome to. Whatever is remaining is what's going to
We'll
be
get the.
correct.
And do you think it's possible within that language that it could be, that this could be part of it, the segregation of the meters, that to say,
Yeah,
okay, we're gonna do this, but also this needs to happen.
To prevent this issue from.
Yeah, and to allow those people to become independent customers, if you will.
Yeah, I can talk to Shannon and see if we
Yeah.
can put that language in there.
And then, I guess, next question would be, you know, is that, especially for now, because could you just make this $5,900 divided by 5 people becomes their service connection fee, if you will? You know, 1,000 should be 1,000 apiece. If we do not do this meters, in my opinion, if we don't do, this will happen again. We will be
Oh,
dealing
I
with
agree.
some mess here. There's no doubt in my mind that we will be dealing with some kind of mess with this.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
Well, I think
So
it's-
Hannah, do you need a vote from us, or is it just,
well, it's information, just.
Yeah, it's informational. If you guys are all in agreement that I go back to law and have them type something up, and then
Sure.
present it to the resident, I guess where we stand at this point. Law really was waiving whatever what we wanted to do. So,
yeah, I think like we talked about last meeting, if the resident wants to take it upon themselves, you know, it's their own informed decision to do so. And if it's, you know, legal's okay with it. I don't see any issue with it. It sounds like a way the department's cover the lost funds.
Right, and then how does that come from the kind of monitoring of that whole thing? That's just when and if this property is ever sold, we get the money back kind of deal?
yeah, so it'll get leaned towards the property. So when she is to sell her specific condo, that lien is gonna be on there and it's
Off of
her,
that unit.
off that unit specifically. It's her responsibility at the final. However, the closing costs are handled. If she still has a remaining balance, that's gonna be handled out of her rent. Whether that's,
So there is a mechanism there that she's gonna pay so much on this as well? And how would, I mean, that seems like that would be a nightmare keeping track of all that.
it'll just go under her bill, and every time she gets a new real estate bill, the balance is just gonna be on there, and she just has to pay it off.
No, but how is what's the mechanism for her to make payments on this 25,000? She's gonna say, oh, I gave you $50 this
She
bill.
pays the collector's office.
Oh,
The
okay.
collector's office will deduct how much she's paying from that bill.
Okay.
Right, so you get to the point where you're gonna,
It's out of my hands. Once I name stuff, it's off of my hands. I
Right.
don't know what's being collected, what's not being collected.
you just tell them what the balance is at the time, but
But we've certainly, many abatement has come through here to abate the lien on such and such a property. And, you know, 5 years from now, will this be, you know, 5 Westminster, we're asking the board to abate $25,000 on
I
5
think that's something that can
Westminster.
also be put into the agreement
Yeah.
with law that there's a bunch of.
You know, this person's gonna buy this condo, but the condo's only worth X amount of dollars and,
oh, I see what you're
you know,
saying.
so
I
I'm
mean,
just,
If the city takes it, that's generally when those happen, Fran, is if we take possession, it would happen at that point. If the property gets sold to another owner, it would come out of correct me if I'm wrong, Hannah or Joanna, it would come out of the proceeds of the sale and it would then come to the department.
Correct, yes.
So, I mean, as long as we don't take it, Fran, we're probably in a place where we wouldn't have to abate it.
Makes sense.
Like I said, I can always have Shannon put something in the agreement that says no specific unit can never, not be rated while it's down, so it's this year, something like that. I can get her a couple different options.
Right, and then see if she can put something there about the rest of these residents, you know.
Right, they have to.
They have to go
individual
to-
connections.
Yeah,
This is where the charge is gonna be.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, certainly they could have, you know, if we had a plumber come in and look at this that we use, and certainly that's an option too, but this would have been someone we deal with, we know
Sure.
better, but
Okay.
I think it would be in the best interest of all to.
It's more efficient if you have some plumber doing more, especially for the office. Yeah, all right.
Whatever we can do as a department to facilitate the setup of individual services, I think we need to be proactive and do it. You know
So,
what I mean?
yeah. And then maybe a discussion with law on that, where we need a hold harmless agreement or something like that, that we, you know, it's really no different than any other meter setup that we would do in-house. I mean, we're touching plumbing, but the plumbing that is associated with the, you know, feed line, so to speak.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I will get in contact with legal and see if they can draft something up. Would you like to look at that as well before we send it out to the resident? Or are you okay with whatever legal drafts up?
I'd be fine seeing it, but I don't necessarily think, I personally wouldn't comment above and beyond what legal comes up with draft language.
Just one other option. What do you think about coming up with an amount if she was just willing to pay up cash up front, done deal with that? You know, just so we don't have to monitor this anymore. You know,
There's value, inherent value there to the city.
so
And it kind of just, you know, the issue is gone.
yeah, just make a number, $7,500, $8,000, whatever. You know, she gets a loan, she does whatever, she gives us that much money, take that, let's just shake the thing, and we're free and clear rather than screwing around with this thing for the next 15, 20 years. You know, and it comes in dribs and drabs. I mean, there's certainly got to be associated with
Something I
that.
was going to ask too, is the city going to assess interest on the debt?
Once it gets lien, there is a 10% interest that's added to it, so.
Yeah, that's what I was, yeah, that's going to be
That's
very difficult for this person.
no kidding. That's just
10% on 25,000. Is that assessed quarterly?
I don't think so,
Annually?
but annually, I think, I'm not
Do-
sure.
It's bigger than her water bill.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's crazy.
I understand they owe the money, like obviously something fell through the cracks, but seems like a pretty big penalty,
Sure does.
10% when she's seemingly taking ownership of the issue.
Yeah.
We can talk to Shanna and see if she has any
Right, because I mean,
suggestions.
as time goes on, and we've seen it in other things, this all come on, what's hardship for her and
Sure.
so on and so forth, and then this was no fault of her own, and here we're.
Yeah, it's great she's taking responsibility, but you also want to make certain, and it's not the department's responsibility to do this, but just to make sure she knows that she's getting herself into, 25,000 with 10% assessed annually. She might not realize that, and that's a pretty hefty price tag. And maybe that's where the conversation with law comes in, can we negotiate a price to make this go away that benefits the city, because there's I think there's inherent benefit and value to the city there. And then there's obviously inherent value to her because the issue's gone, and, whatever the city determines that price is, if it's, if the city can do that, it's a good, I guess, middle ground. Yeah, compromise. Thank you. Yeah, it's a good compromise. So, and then like you said, Fran, the city's not chasing this for years and years and years and years. It's just gone.
All right, I'll touch base with legal and the resident and see what we can.
Right, and then the most expeditious way and legal way to get meters, those individually accounts, whether that would go into whatever the final, judgment is rendered against her, or that can even be done sooner rather than later. Because you do have, and yes, it's just a mess.
Please keep us posted as this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you. All right, next agenda item, discussion of second service at 31 Holyoke Road.
So on this one, Joe, the resident had requested, I don't know how long ago, years ago, a second service. But this particular service is on the side of the driveway with the meter exposed. And currently is servicing a small garden, which most people would probably just run a garden hose from. There's the silcock,
It's an older home, and probably the best way to describe this service that we're talking about, which is every single year we're taking the meter in and taking out. It looks just like something you'd see in a cemetery kind of deal to water flowers. It's just a copper pipe they sort of stick out around, a few little flowers around it, and then here's our meter, stuck out in the middle of, 3 inches from the corner of the edge of the driveway. So it's not. It's just.
if we were to install this tomorrow, it would have to be, well kept, out of the element. So it's one of those things, almost like five, as we were just talking about, that got slipped through the cracks or whatever, and it's still out there. And all it takes is that to get blown off, and it's flooding everything. Don't forget, it's another penetration into our mains too. That's just sitting up there. So.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this one. They have a separate curb stop for this service?
They do.
Okay, so it's not teed off their main service. There's 2 taps from the main?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And we wouldn't have plans to go to the main and take the corp out of there or anything. I thought we would just kind of discontinue this from a practicality standpoint, a vulnerability standpoint. You've got a meter that's just out in the open, just weathering away. It's not a meter, they're not designed to, that meter anyway, it's not designed to be out in the elements like that. But I guess too, to that point, and to be fair to the customer, this is something that they've had for
20 plus years.
20 plus years. Wow. I think back in the day, there wasn't any, probably before the meter, we were just turning the water on and off at the street for them. Now, meters come into play, for at least the last 20 some odd years. So there's a meter there for that service, but you've seen usages as low as 1,000 gallons.
I think the lowest I saw was 1,200 gallons used for 1 quarter.
Like water in a garden.
Right, but it's a lot of this.
Yeah.
So is there not a what's it called on the outside of it?
Spigot?
Yeah, is there not one of those on her home?
No, they have one in their home. The home's probably 35 feet from where this meter is. Yeah, it's not.
So what's
Oh, so it's like
preventing you from running a hose?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for the resident, but I don't know. I don't know why you would want to spend $80 every single year to take this meter in and out and, worry about it getting hit. And then you have to winterize this riser that comes out of the ground, the whole thing. It just seems, I mean, they can do whatever I want, but from a water department standpoint, it puts us a little bit of a risk, and it, something could be damaged. And we'll be out there shutting the curb off and all that. And so we had hoped that we were just going to discontinue that with that individual, but they did raise concern that they didn't get enough notice for this, and and I don't know if that would have mattered anyways. We thought that when they requested the service, that just telling them we weren't going to do that anymore would have sufficed, so to speak, and it didn't. So long story short, something we said we weren't going to do, we've backtracked and we've put the meter in, said, okay, let's go with it this year, but
in the fall when it comes out.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I don't know if they'll still,
Wait, the department put the meter in?
Yeah, we connected the service out like we've done the last 25 years.
Okay. I didn't know that step had been taken.
No, that was kind of.
I think, Fran, I agree with what the department's saying. There is a inherent risk to everyone involved. anything could happen to that exposed pipe, the meter. It's in the elements, you know, it's not,
Customer.
this is,
I mean,
I would probably
it's
make it clear that this is the end.
an abatement issue. I mean, what if there's, and I'm assuming that there's another fixed charge for this particular meter, right? So they're paying the usage plus a fixed charge, right? The what's it called, the flat fee?
Yeah.
Right, and, but I,
For a lot of hoses.
I think the base fee should be charged all the time, because it's not a service that's going away, it's a.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's seasonal meter, it's just, it's such an oddity that, given where it's at, it's not.
I think seasons were made for farmers.
Sure, that makes sense, yeah.
I mean, is this something we can modify a policy or something to prevent from happening in the future / kind of put an end to in the present?
In our rules and regulations, it does state that a meter has to be either in a pit or out of the elements. So I think this one just slipped through the cracks 20-some years ago.
So,
I don't even mean that, like, I'm not trying to make it sound like anything was wrong, but just so the department doesn't have to deal with this down the road, you know, it can just be written where it's like, hey, you know, granted, you've had this for a long time, it's not allowed. It's just one of those things where you can just kind of wipe the slate clean of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Do we have any more like this?
Not like this.
I think so.
Yeah, that's all. Well, that we know, that's all.
right.
Well,
Most people would be.
swapping meters already,
And-
other than any.
All right, and you talk to people to scrutinize their bill, most people, if they saw this, oh my God, that thing, you know, it's like, sure, the cable box out, in the basement that you never use, and paying, you know, you would turn that thing in a heartbeat. That's the best scenario.
I think the hope from you is that we can send the resident a letter stating that as of after this fall, that the meter is no longer gonna be installed. Unless they put in a pit, or if they put this, or pay for meter pit, or put the service inside the garage that's standing next to.
Sure, I think that'd be appropriate to give them options as well. So it's not just, you know, hey,
Maybe we can give
we're
them,
done with this situation, you know, you can make it right, you know, right. You know, that's your prerogative, but we're not going to keep hooking it up as it's been hooked up in the past.
I forgot to take this meter out, that's happened too.
oh, man.
Yeah, so we've had not like well into the winter, but freezing weather, and you know, this meter you can take it out and it's frozen, so it's not, I believe this meter is froze a few times as well, and
Oh, jeez.
yeah, that's.
But it's the perfect example we were just talking about. It's another thing that the department has to keep on their radar, you know, and it's such an oddity, you know, to have to try to remember to take care of this, you know, come the fall, the winter.
I think that's where it has had it, where it's kind of fallen on us, you know, whether, I don't, say they called and we didn't get to it, then it froze, well, that's our fault,
Right.
his fault, whose fault, you know?
Sure.
So.
All right, I'll send them a letter.
Thank you. All right, the next agenda item, approval of May 11th, 2021 minutes.
I read through them. I didn't have any objections as written.
Yeah, I reviewed them too. I had no changes.
All right, with that, do I hear a motion?
Sure,
Make a mo- Go ahead, John.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the Tuesday, May 11th meeting as written.
Do I hear a second?
Second,
Roll call, Commissioner Cole,
yes.
Commissioner Najewski,
Yes.
Commissioner Papalarzik, yes. Thank you for that. Department project updates.
We'll start off with Poland District Treatment Plan. Has to produce 121 million gallons of treated water. Well 2 is at 320 million gallons of treated water. That's not currently running, but is ready to run as stated in last couple of meetings. Reservoir's full, going over the flashboards. East Mountain tank is just about completed. We put the fence up to pave the road going up. Topsoil's in, grass planted. On the dry bridge, we covered, beginning of this meeting, so. But, upcoming projects, Western Ave, Phase 2, South Maple Bridge, and the Tank Rehab project, will be starting in July, Tank Rehab. So we got for updates. Anything else?
Speaking of future projects, we just voted on the rate increase. Does the department have projects in the immediate future they're interested in completing? As a part of capital events? I know you just referenced Western Ave and a couple other streets, but I guess I'd just be curious.
Yeah, I mean, for one, that is the Susan Drive Booster Station and the hope, maybe some, recent funding opportunities. That's one we'd like to advance, and that's to basically change the internal workings of the station and upgrade them. Yeah, that's definitely on the agenda for this year.
Okay, yeah, we don't have to go into great, it'll just be nice, as it's like another supplemental piece of information for ratepayers, is that, the rate increase is going to go towards infrastructure improvements, which down the road will save, the money, and in turn, ratepayers money by keeping infrastructure, functioning and not having to do Band-Aid repairs all the time.
And keep in mind, I mean, some of that, like last year, there were some things we were going to do, and then they went ahead and, took down designated, right? It wasn't as much as we thought or whatever. So yeah, that was a hit.
Yep.
The tank rehab. So that's going to start July.
July.
We're starting at Northwest Tank, which is basically, washing, repairing, any masonry type issues, a hatch, new vent, that type of thing, and then painting. And then that will go, Northwest Tank, Sackett Tank, and Proven Tank. And hopefully by the end of the summer, those will be all done.
It's 150 days.
And then, and that's an internal cleaning as well. But the tank doesn't come offline, facing vacuuming, tank out.
All right, are there any questions on the updates?
I just want to extend my thanks to Steve, and I got a tour last week, Wednesday, of the system. The only thing we were not able to see was the work done on East Mountain, but it was very inclusive, and it certainly put me in a better place to understand some of the things we were talking about tonight as it related to Dry Bridge. So Steve, I can't thank you enough, and it was very informative and well worth the time spent. So, but thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else, want to take a look at our next meeting?
Let me put in my calendar. I believe it's, like you said, Joe, the 7th, 6th.
Yeah, the 6th.
I have no. So Monday will be a holiday. I have no obstacles.
Yeah, that should work fine for me as well.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm not entirely certain of my whereabouts. If I'm in town, I'll try to join live, but if I'm away, just Zoom works out really well.
I think we might be in person as of July 1st. I haven't heard anything from the clerk's office yet. So I can check with the clerk's office to see if we still have to do Zoom or if it's gonna go public. Peter, do you know any information on that yet?
I would not be opposed.
As long as we can still schedule them, I can keep doing that if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, let's,
Okay.
And again, if I'm in town, I'm certainly, I think I like being in the room. I think you get a lot more context. But at times it certainly makes it easier to be at the meeting and not be in town. So,
all right, so we'll plan on July 6th at 7. Does that work for you, John? Sorry, I should have.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry about that.
that's okay.
Okay, yeah, and then I guess Hannah and others just keep us posted if the policy changes and we want to move back to, whether it's the room that we used to use or council chambers, whatever, just let us know.
So,
All right,
all right, I'll make a motion, Joe. Make a motion to adjourn the Board of Water Resource on June 1st at 8:59 p.m.
Second,
roll call, Commissioner Cole,
Yes.
Commissioner Nojelski,
yes.
Commissioner Papalarzik, yes.